We're joined by a great friend of the show, Dr. Stephen Mulholland, the founder of Spa Medica. He's one of Canada's top cosmetic plastic surgeons. We're going to talk about some of the trends and also some popular procedures at the moment. Dr. Stephen Mulholland, thank you and welcome back to the show.
Barb, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Everybody's talking about this COVID-20, like the 20 pounds everybody's gaining when they're working from home. And I know it's getting a lot of people down. And, you know, I was even talking about you coming on earlier and I mentioned that. And someone said, oh, it's not like whether I gained weight. I know I've gained a lot of weight. Are you having people come to you about that aspect of being home?
Absolutely. Well, we've been open for 6 weeks now, and typical of Torontonians and Canadians in general, it's a very safe environment and safe process, as we discussed the last time, for both staff and patients. And if you look at what people are interested in doing, number one, they've been locked in for like 3 months. They've been working at home for the most part and not going out and engaging, and gyms are closed. So yeah, the COVID-10 or COVID-20 pounds, typically, as we all know, fat never goes where you want it to. It never goes to the top of your breast pole or your lips or your high cheekbones. It always goes to annoying areas like your arms or your inner thighs or your pot or your love handles. And so one of the most common procedures we're doing now that we are back is under local anesthesia. Again, we don't want any intubation or ventilation when we've got a respiratory virus in the air. And it's modern versions of liposuction where we put freezing in the area. And we go in, we use little probes, radio frequencies, most common, something called body tight, and we melt the fat, almost like creating a mango smoothie. And then we remove the unwanted fat areas, and you get some skin contraction. That's extremely popular because it's done about an hour, and you'd be right back in front of your computer doing your Zoom meetings. Now, of course, I always tell people, look, if you can lose that weight, lose the weight. But what you'll find is that people lose the weight, and again, it never comes off where you put it on. It comes off where you don't want it. If your face looks a little skeletal or your other body parts lose the weight, you lose it intra-abdominally, but somehow that 10 pounds you had over the last 3 months stays on your love handle or your outer thighs. And so that's a very popular technique. We have non-surgical treatments, of course, like the Evolve and Cool Sculpting and Sculpture. But at the end of the day, if you've got a grabbable chunk of unwanted fat, local anesthetic, modern versions of lipo is still the best way to get rid of it. But first and foremost, just lose at least 50% of the weight that you put on.
But if you go for a procedure like that, is it one treatment? Do you have to wear special like Spanx afterwards? What's the recovery like?
That's a good question. First of all, for the non-surgical treatments, like I mentioned, Cool Sculpting, Sculpture, the Evolve, there's a number of them. We can kill an inch or two of fat, and it's not inexpensive, these treatments. They're very popular. We do a lot of them. But modern versions of lipo under local anesthesia is done in typically an hour per zone. It's permanent. The fat's gone forever. If you've got 6, 7, 8 inches or 10 or more centimeters, we can remove all that fat. The non-invasive treatments sound great, and they're good for small collections. 2 or 3 treatments, it might take 12 or 18 weeks to get the final result. So modern lipo is still the king, and we can do it for local. And yes, you do have to wear a special garment, but if you put on 10 or 20 pounds and it's spilling over in muffin top fashion on your pants, you're probably already wearing something like that. So we put you in what I would call a special therapeutic control garment while your skin is shrinking over that 3 or 4 weeks. But you can be typically right back, to activities day.
So I was hearing something, and I find this quite relatable when it comes to things like getting your nails done, getting your hair done. And I wonder if it translates to cosmetic treatments as well, that people have been in quarantine for so long and forced to find other ways to deal with stuff that they've actually started to embrace a more natural look. And maybe they're not as interested in going back to all of the services they used to. Do people come to you and say, I kind of want a more natural look this time?
Well, you're asking the wrong person, because
okay.
I typically get the patient that's intensely committed to this. I think, there's something to be said for 12 weeks without getting your hair and nails done. You've got a few more wrinkles. a good look, and a lot of people are probably like that, and that's a good thing. I think from a cultural and societal perspective, we may be too aesthetically focused, but I can only tell you I've never been busier in the summer in 25 years, and so there's a lot of people, I think, that just huddle down and hunkered and continue to work from home for 12 weeks. They can't take a trip anywhere. There's no restaurants to go to. There's no social gatherings, so they're taking that little bit of saved money and investing it in contouring a little bit, or what's very common, what I call the Zoom boom. You know, boomers are Zooming all the time, and they're looking down at their computer, and you see this little jowl that everyone else is looking at. And if you can't go audio on your calls, very popular is a little suture suspension thread lift of the jawline, or a little heating device to fix little jowls, so that when you're a boomer Zooming, your jawline looks more contoured. So that's also very popular.
Seems that there's so much more available now that is, I guess, non-invasive sort of surgery that can be done quickly with less downtime. And also people just don't like the idea of getting cut.
You're exactly right. And in my practice now, 80 to 85% of all the things I do, whether it's on the face, and we're doing a little lift or tuck or suture suspension or body contouring with body tight lipo and procedures like that, done under local, and typically it's an hour or two and you go home after. When you're going to do a big tummy tuck with muscle repair after children, or you're breaking a nose in a nose job, or you're putting an augment in under the muscle, those are still 3 procedures requiring general anesthetic, and they're popular, but nowhere near like the what I would call the non-excision or non-scalpel based treatments, from Botox to filler to these new treatments where you get substantial results that last for years, but you don't have a scar. You don't have a lot of recovery. There's not a lot of risk. There's no ventilation or invasive things. When you're worried about catching COVID-19, you want to make sure that you're not going to have a procedure that puts you at risk from a respiratory perspective. And that's the other thing. We make sure everybody has a COVID-19 test 7 days to 10 days before their treatment, so that hopefully we're not operating on COVID-positive people that are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, but you guys have always been a very clean and sanitary environment, but you're taking extra steps right now for people who are visiting.
Well, most people can rest assured when you're at Spa Medica, or really any out-of-hospital premises licensed facility, and there's 35 in Toronto, you're in the safest possible place you could be. Everyone's got shields and masks and sanitizer, and we've been worried about infection control for 25 years. It's when, you're leading up to your surgery to make sure you're safe and you're distant from your risky malarial kids, or post-operatively when you're recovering. You just got to use some common sense, wear a mask, and stay distant. Well, if you're working from home on a computer, it's pretty easy to do that. And I think that's why plastic surgery is so popular now, because you have the perfect environment where you don't have to go in and meet coworkers and have to explain, why you're a little stiff or sore. You can recover while still working from the comfort of your own Zoom platform.
No, we didn't ever talk about Zoom, and now it's all we talk about.
It is insane, but interesting how quickly we as a culture and as a society will pivot to what's practical. And as Canadians, we just typically follow health guidelines, and we've had great health guidance, and which is, for a city of 7 million people, to have 50 to 75 positive tests a day. Mm-hmm. That's one household apartment block in the U.S. So we've done a really good job, and I think if you're going to do a procedure, let's keep it safe for the patient, safe for the staff, and safe for society.
Dr. Stephen Mulholland, it's always so great to have you with us. Thanks so much for this.
Thanks again, Bert.
He's the founder of Spa Medica, one of Canada's top cosmetic plastic surgeons. You can find out more about all of the services they have to offer at spamedica.com.